do this. Okie dokie, think we're live. Are we live? Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, or if you, good morning if you're in Australia. Good evening or afternoon if you're in somewhere else in the world. Just popping on for our weekly Friday morning Q&A. So I'll just wait to see if any comments pop in. So this is a regular Friday Ask Me Anything. So you can ask me anything about horses. Off the track thoroughbreds. Yeah. Anyway, I'll just wait to see if any messages pop in. And as usual, I have little Poppy here. So Poppy's like our little admin, aren't you? Here's Poppy. Poppy is a little rescue Lhasa Apso cross. What are you? Cross something fluffy. Anyway, okay, so while we're waiting to see if any questions pop in, I know our last live I was talking about ulcers, and I just wanted to give you an update. I had 2 horses scoped on, what day is it today? Friday, on Wednesday. And it was interesting, they both came back positive for ulcers. So both these are off the track thoroughbreds. Now these 2 have been spelling, they haven't been in racing for quite a few years. So it is often said, once you get a horse off the track, if you put them out for a spell for, 6 months, a year, their ulcers will heal. And this is often not the case. Sometimes they can heal, but quite often they can't heal as well. So my 2 boys were a perfect example of this. Snippy came back with grade 1 gastric ulcers, and Junior came back with moderate to severe pyloric ulcers. So the pyloric ulcers are actually at the back of the stomach, towards the entrance into the small intestine. So both these horses have been showing symptoms of ulcers, and hence the reason I chose them to be scoped. I'm going to get all my horses scoped, so I'll work through them progressively. So and then another thing is these guys are wind suckers. So wind sucking can be a sign of ulcers. It's often not always means that they have ulcers, because wind sucking is a habit that forms. But one of the reasons that a horse can pick up wind sucking, particularly thoroughbred racehorses in racing, is because of ulcers. It's said that the actual sucking in of air momentarily relieves the pain of ulcers. So, and then it becomes a habit, and even if they're healed, they can still often they'll continue to wind suck throughout their life. It'd be interesting to see with my boys whether their wind sucking eases off. So yeah, it'll be a really good little experiment to see whether they are wind sucking still because of the pain from ulcers. So that's my little, it was interesting to have them scoped. And I'm really a big advocate for having your horse diagnosed when you first get your horse off the track. Before anything, having them diagnosed for ulcers, and if they have ulcers, treat them and then follow up with another scope to make sure they've healed. And then when you know that your horse is pain-free, then you are ready with following other, you're giving the horse a spell and recovering from injuries, etc. But making sure that they're pain-free and ready to go into re-education and retraining. So that's so important before you start hopping on them and riding and doing all of that with them. Okay, so haven't got any questions in at the moment. So what I thought I would have a little chat to you about today is diet. So we've been looking at ulcers the last live, and I think I even chatted to you about it the live before as well. So what I wanted to talk to you about today is diet. Now, it's interesting that with off the track thoroughbreds, they come from a very highly concentrated, high starch, high grain diet. Hence the reason that ulcers are going to be very often they're going to have ulcers. When you get your off the track thoroughbred, you want to transition them from that high grain, high starch diet to a grain free and high forage diet. So horses are designed to continually eat a fibrous type of, a fibrous forage. So not this really rich green grass, but more of a fibrous long stem type of forage. So you get a nice sort of, it's more of native grasses that horses are designed to eat. So if you've got your horse out on really lush green pasture, that's going to cause problems in itself, because that's not the type of forage that they're designed to eat. When it comes to feeding, so often feeding, we can feed them too much in one sitting. So the ideal amount to feed per hard feed, so this is not, sorry, I'm dropping Poppy here. Poppy's here and she says, I need a little cushion, Mum, to sit on so I can join in the live. Do you want to join in the live? We might just get a little cushion for Poppy. Let's get a little cushion for Poppy. She's so cute. Oops. I'm coming back, guys. I'm just going to get a little cushion for Poppy. There you go, because she's so cute. There we go. That's better, Poppy, isn't it? So everyone can see your cute little face. Hey? So when you're feeding per feed, so this is not including your hay, but just say you give a morning and afternoon feed in your bucket, you don't want to feed more than 500 grams of dry matter. So dry feed, whether it's your pellets or your chaff or grain. So no more than 500 grams per 100 kilos. Okay, so however much your horse weighs. So for example, if you have a 500 kilo horse, which is your average sort of like 16 hand thoroughbred, you don't want to be feeding more than, that works out to 2.5 kilos of your dry feed before you dampen it down, or if you feed something like Maxi Soy or Speedy Beat. This is the dry version. So 2.5 kilos. So for instance, you'll get your dipper, your typical 1 kilo dippers of feed, 1 kilo dipper. So 1 kilo, might have like 1 dippers is about a kilo, 800 grams to a kilo. If you're feeding barley, I mean, this is, hopefully you don't really need to feed barley, but it's looking back on how I fed years ago. I'm like, oh my God, it's amazing what we learn throughout the year, especially when, like myself, you've been working with horses and racehorses for so long, and looking back at what I used to feed and how detrimental it was. It's all a big learning curve. So let's look, for example, 1 dipper is about a kilo of feed of grain. So just say a 1 dipper of pellets would be about 1 kilo. So you would not want to feed more than 2 dippers of, just say, your pellets. Now this is for a 500 kilo horse, and a little bit of chaff. So this is something to consider. Now, what happens when we feed too much? It goes through their digestive system way too fast. But this is, now once again, this is talking about your hard feed. This is not your hay. So an example would be, just say you fed a 5 kilos of feed. So just say a big bucket of feed to your horse, and it so let's say, so the 20 kilo buckets. So this is what I used to feed my horses, and I used to feed a lot of barley, working in the racing industry and not having the education and knowledge that we've got access to online, and just being told what to feed. So I would feed a big 20 kilo bucket of feed to my horses. Now this is a lot of feed for them to go through the digestive tract. What happens, and I was a big grain feeder as well. So grain is a starch, and starch gets digested in the horse's stomach, in the small intestine. Now feed goes through the horse's digestive system, the small stomach and small intestine, very fast. Now if we're overloading and feeding too much feed at one time, it goes through the stomach and the small intestine undigested. And then what happens is it lands into the hindgut, so their large intestine, as undigested grains and starch, where it ferments. So this is not a good thing. We don't want undigested starch. Now starch can be your rice bran. Feeds are very deceiving out there. So your brands, even brands and pollards, your micronized barley or oats. Now, if we feed too much of that and it goes through the small intestine undigested, it ends up in the large intestine and it ferments. And what this happens is it causes a very acidic environment in the hindgut. And this is where problems such as laminitis and you get all your metabolic syndrome disorders happening. It's not good, and it's so wonderful that we've got such good access to knowledge, in how it is best to be able to take care of our horses. I look back at how I fed my horses. Oh my God, I just used to feed big 20-kilo buckets of feed to my horses. And I did have a horse end up with laminitis, really bad laminitis. And I was a big grain feeder as well. Coming from the racing industry, I'd get my Off The Track Thoroughbreds and I would just continue. I wanted them to look good. I was working them quite hard. So easily put 2 big dippers of barley in their feed at one time with chaff and concentrates, and then pack it up with your chaff is easily, they don't need to chew as much, so having too much chaff in one feed is also not a good thing. And I ended up having laminitis. One of my horses got Cushing's disease, so yeah, big learning curve, and I wasn't aware of it. It's only until you learn, and I continually research and study that you're realizing that what you did in the past wasn't the right thing to do. So when you're feeding your horses, be aware of how much you're feeding in one sitting. Are you filling up a really big bucket of feed, or are you giving them small amounts? So it's good sometimes to have a little weigher there, and just to weigh your feeds. Let's say you've got a 500-kilo horse, and just to weigh your feed and make sure it's not over 2.5 kilos. If you're feeding your horse, you're looking at your feeds are like 3 kilos, 3+ kilos. It's going to be too much for them to eat in one sitting, and it's going to go through their digestive tract undigested. Now, my horses are going to start barking here. Sorry, I have a family of dogs. Guys, come on. They heard the door next door, open the dogs next door, and I'm doing a live, so you've got to be quiet. Little Poppy here is very quiet. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to mention today. Just wanted to see if you have any questions, pop them in the comments and I'll answer them. As I said, we're going to be doing this weekly, so you can let me know anytime throughout the week. Just pop in some questions. I mean, I can answer them through the week as well, but it's always good to have something to chat to in the lives. Chat about, I should say. My little Poppy. So once again, diet. So now that we know that we don't want to be feeding more than 500 grams per 100 kilos in one hard feed sitting, you also want to make sure that your horse has ad lib access to long stem forage. Now, once again, this is not this lush green grass that you have out in the paddocks. This is a good fibrous native grass, or this is hay. And they need to have access to this 24 hours. So it's, another typical thing, and this is what I used to do in the past as well with not knowing, is give them their huge big hard feed and then give them a biscuit of hay with it. And they had a little bit of pick in the paddock maybe, but then they wouldn't get another feed or hay until, the next morning. I mean, it was huge feeds that I was giving them, but this isn't good giving them huge feeds because, as I mentioned, it's going through their digestive tract way too fast and ending up undigested in the hind gut. And this is when a lot of problems, not only physical problems such as laminitis and metabolic diseases like Cushing's, but also behavior problems as well. When you've got undigested grains fermenting in the hind gut, that's going to cause behavior problems, and it's also going to cause hind gut ulcers. So feeding and nutrition is a really big part of having a happy and healthy off the track thoroughbred, and having issues with not feeding correctly is one of the biggest causes of behavior problems as well as your physical problems. So big number one, I'm really big on it. I don't know if you know, but Feed Excel is a wonderful tool, and I might do a live video on Feed Excel one day. But that's a fantastic equine nutrition online nutrition calculator, and you can actually get in and really analyze the diet of your horse all the way down to your minerals and vitamins and everything. So I'm a member of Feed Excel and I love it. I get in there and analyze on my diets all the time. So yeah. Anyway, waiting for any questions. There's no questions. I think I'm a good talker. I've been going for about 15 minutes now, so I don't want to leave this too long and, sort of bore everybody. But once again, if you have any questions, pop them in the comment box or let me know throughout the week, and we'll chat about it in our Friday live. And I might leave it at there, but yeah, if you rewatch this live and you have any questions about diet nutrition, which is what we've discussed today, how much you want to be feeding your horse, or you think you may be overfeeding, let me know in the comments and I will answer them for you. Anyway, Poppy, you ready to go? We're going to go out and check the horses now, and go to the feed store. All I do is feed horses. Anyway, I hope you have a lovely weekend, and we will see you in the Facebook group. Okay, bye. Bye, Pops. How cute. I'm a real dog person, as you can see. Hey, look in the Facebook. Yeah, Bobby. She's about, how old are you? About 13, and gee, she's a little goer. She comes out, she follows me. She's shocking with the horses, because I'll go out and having a herd of 19 horses. She just will just sit there and let them run. She'll get run over if I don't keep an eye on her. She was terrified of them when she first arrived to me, and now she's just thinks she's like a big Great Dane. Don't you? Hey, you're a wild one. Bye.